morning, Stampers. How are we this morning? It's a Friday morning. It's raining in Yakima. So I thought I'd do some fun technique that had to do with water. Thinking about rain. We're going to do some fun abstract art today uh, using a hot glue gun. How fun is that? And some watercoloring. I'm going to teach you today how to do hot glue and how to emboss on it. They call it hot glue embossing. So let's just jump right in and get going. I'm going to take a little piece of watercolor paper. This particular one is about 3.5 by 2 3/4. You don't need a big piece. Abstract art is either something you want in a big abstract display, or you want just a little bit of abstract art. And I love it because most techniques I do have to do with mixed media, and you can't go wrong. Anything you do is going to be your version of a work of art. So that's what we're going to do today. So we have our little piece of watercolor paper. We have a hot glue gun. Mine's been warming up. This is not the best gun, but you can go to the craft store and buy a hot glue gun for $5. Um, I'm just using a regular glue stick. You can buy, which would be cute with this technique. I haven't even tried it yet. As you see, my package isn't even open. You can buy glittered glue sticks. They already have glitter in them, and that would save you from doing the technique that I'm about to teach you, which is hot glue embossing, which is embossing your hot glue. So let's just jump right in. So you're going to take your piece of watercolor paper. Make sure that your hot glue gun is heated up. You also need a stylus or a pen or anything that we're going to use to move our hot glue around while it's hot. You can draw images. I've drawn Christmas trees, the kind of retro looking Christmas trees with my glue, and then hot glued it with like green embossing powder. And that's the other thing, you need embossing powder. Today I'm going to be using gold embossing powder. You can use any colors. You can use your pinks, your whatever you want to use. We're also going to be using today we're going to be using our Brucio colors um, to do the watercoloring. If you don't have Brucio colors, you can get a little palette and just use your re-inkers and a water pen, and you'll be able to watercolor the way you would normally do. I've done some watercoloring techniques. You can check out my videos there, and you can do it that way. So as with most mixed media, there's several ways to do one thing or achieve one look. So this is what I'm showing you today is just one of my ways of doing something. There's a lot of other ways out there and a lot of good tutorials out there. You can find them on Pinterest or YouTube, and this is just one of my ways. So let's jump right in. So we got our hot glue gun right, and we just want to your abstract. You can do circles, you can do lines, you can do squares. Like I said, you can do trees. But what you want to do, so we're going to start with our glue gun. Let's see if I can move in just a little bit for you. See if you can see what we're doing here. So what I'm going to do is I decided I'm going to probably go with the same sort of design here. And so I want to get two nice thick lines of glue across my paper there. And you kind of want to work a little bit fast because you want your glue to stay hot and melty. Let's do 3 lines. Then you're going to take your stylus, you're just going to drag it through it. It's okay if you get the little strings. Sometimes those look cool, or you can remove them after your glue dries. To get the glue off of your stylus, once it's dry, you see where there's a little bit of glue there on the bottom of the stylus, just grab your baby wipe and it'll pop right off there. See, comes right off. It's not gonna hurt it. So you want to use something metal and okay. So now it's okay that this is almost dry because what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in our heat tool and we're gonna heat that glue back up until it's warm. Let's go ahead and do that. Then while it's warm, we're going to take and get it into our embossing powder. I'm just dipping it in my gold embossing powder. Tap it off. Now we're going to heat set it again. I'm going to get some of my gold off there. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to add some spritzes. And now we're going to heat it up again. And now it could change the form of it a little. You're reheating the glue. It won't a lot. Sometimes you want it to. You may want it to flatten out some of your peaks or something you did. And all we'll do is keep setting, see the embossing powder changing. See, it just keeps at our gold emboss there. There we go. You could use this piece just like this. You don't have to do anything to it. You put a little greeting, mount it on your card, mat it, whatever you would like. Now this is still hot. I've got a little spot there. I see my heat emboss didn't dry or set. I'm going to heat it up a little bit. So you can keep reheating it if your heat embossing powder didn't set. So there we go. Isn't that pretty just all by itself? So let's let that cool a little bit. While we're doing that, I'm going to bring in a tray just because of my workspace. And I've got a water mister. I've got some of my brusho colors. I never know if to call these brusho or brusho. I think it's probably going to be whatever you want to call it. Color crystals, let's just go with that. We'll call them color crystals. So I'm going to back out of this a little bit for you. So now our glue is warm. You can feel it to the touch, but it is set. So we have our embossing. Now I'm going to, these right here, these are, because I'm just going to add a little bit of shimmer to this on top. All these is shimmer paints that I have put into misters with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. That's a whole nother technique you can use. You fill your mister probably half to 3/4 full with rubbing alcohol, just regular rubbing alcohol, and put a few drops of your shimmer paint in it, and you end up with a shimmer mist that you can spritz on your cards or do in your watercolor or whatever you'd like. So that's what I have there. And I've got, and I just label mine is all I do and keep them aside. So this one's copper and this one's my gold. I was just thinking I wanted to try copper on this. Like I said, it's mixed media, so just do whatever you feel comfortable doing. So I'm going to spritz this a little bit with some water. And I'm just using the, what color did, Peruvian blue color crystals. I'm going to spritz it a little bit. And then while the water is still wet and moving out, I'm going to take a little spritz of my shimmer paint and just add it in there. And that's going to just mold around, or we're just going to move this around. Okay, there. So we have our color. Pick up a little bit of more color off my bottom of my tray here. This is the other reason I like doing watercolor in like a little plastic tray. I don't know if you guys remember these. These used to be Stampin' Up's embossing powder trays. I use mine for everything. Okay, I'm going to move that aside. And I'm going to lightly dry this with my heat tool for the sake of film. You can just set it aside and let it dry naturally. But I'm going to just show you how this comes together into a card. I'm trying not to heat directly onto my glue too much because I don't want it to move too much. You heat, if you tap it while your paper is warm, you can kind of flatten it back out. You know how water paper curls up. There we go. Now, most of the time when I do watercoloring, because the paper does sort of warp, I do like to use a mat. I'm going to let this cool a little bit to make sure my glue doesn't reactivate. Okay, now I'm going to use my glue it down to a mat, and I try to get around my edges so that your piece of work will lay flat. Get my edges really well. And now I just have an A2 card base folded in the long form, so it's 4 1/4 by 11. And we're going to fold it in half because I want my card to open upright. Now I'm just going to move this up slightly on my sheet. Again, making sure I get glue to my corners to hold my watercolor sheet flat. And then I die cut the word friend from the well-written dies. I don't want to lose my little dot there. And I just use, you can just use your glue and little glue on there. We're going to just set that right. What side do we want it? Where do we want it? Let's do it offset just a little bit. Get our little dot out of there. There you go. You have an abstract art piece. And if you, I don't know if it'll show in the film, but that little bit of copper that I spritzed on there has got some little shimmer inside of here. The other thing you can do with this, just so you know, is you can create your own enamel dots. Just take a piece of wax paper, create your dots. You could do teardrops or just dots. Put your embossing powder on them. See if I have a card I can use. Heat set them. There you go. So you can create your own dimensionals or dots or embellishments. Any colors you want. You could do pinks, greens, blues. Let this dry, pop it off of the wax paper and attach it to your project. There you go. So that is my simple tutorial today doing hot glue embossing. I hope you enjoyed it and you have a happy stamping day. Bye bye now.